Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. A late sell-off on Dalal Street. The Nifty drops below 26,000, ending at the low point of the day. The Sensex loses over 440 points. Mid-caps continue to be under pressure. The rupee posts the biggest rally in a month thanks to the RBI's intervention, but it remains above the 89 mark against the dollar. RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra says a 3% annual drop is natural for the rupee. Also says there is scope for policy rates to go down further. India's new labour codes make minimum wage a universal right for every worker. The central government will fix a floor wage, which may differ across geographies but allows states to fix the minimum wage, mandates gratuity for fixed-term employees after they complete a year. Trade unions call the codes a deceptive fraud, announce a nationwide protest. Real estate companies could see labour costs increase by 10 to 15% due to the new labour codes. Gig workers get legal recognition and platform companies could see limited short-term financial impact. 50 lakh IT sector employees likely to see a reduction in their in-hand salary, but cost to companies remains unchanged. United States and Ukraine update the framework to end the war with Russia after talks in Geneva. Zelensky says conceding territory to Russia is the main problem, but promises to work with the US on compromises that strengthen the country. President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, has disbanded with 8 months left to its mandate. Elon Musk led the initiative in the first few months after it was launched with much fanfare to slash the size of the government. 40% GST rate will deter RoyalEnfield from investing in bigger motorcycles, as the company's CEO Govind Rajan plans to adopt a startup mentality to minimize the GST impact, doubles down on exports and plans to ramp up capacity. That's an exclusive. Hindustan Aeronautics calls the Tejas fighter jet crash in Dubai on Friday an isolated occurrence arising out of exceptional circumstances, says it would have no impact on the company's business operations, financial performance or future deliveries. The stock falls up to 9% in trade before recovering. The Supreme Court agrees to quash all criminal charges against billionaires Nitin and Chetan Sandesara after they agreed to a 5,100 crore rupees settlement in a bank fraud case. The court says criminal proceedings will not serve any useful purpose and the money will be disbursed to lenders based on their dues. After 6 quarters of margin expansion, Tech Mahindra CEO Mohit Joshi expects business transformation to be completed in FY27, puts the spotlight on profitability, delivery optimization and scaling of AI services. Justice Surya Kant takes oath as the 53rd Chief Justice of India. He will have a tenure of 14 months, promises to focus on reducing the pendency of cases. The Indian Navy commissions INSMahe, built by Cochin Shipyard. The ship is designed to hunt submarines, conduct coastal patrols and secure vital maritime routes. Legendary Hindi film actor Dharmendra dies at 89 after a prolonged illness, a career spanning 6 decades and a crowd favourite for his debonair appearance. Dharmendra straddled action, comedy and romantic roles with equal ease. He was honoured with the Padma Bhushan in 2012 and served as a BJP MP for a term. Well, let's start with the day's market action. The Dalal Street witnessing an all-round fall in the last hour of trade, coming off the intraday highs. The Nifty, in fact, slipping below the 26,000 mark, finally closing 100 points lower there. The Sensex down 330 points. Flat close for the Nifty Bank, but off its intraday high, and the Nifty Mid-Cap Index down by about 200 points today. The market in the first half did witness a late sell-off in the later half of the trading session. Nearly 40 Nifty stocks closing in the red today. But let's move from equities to the currency market action, where the Indian rupee posted its biggest one-day gain in a month today. This as the central bank intervention helped the rupee rebound from that all-time low that it hit on Friday. However, the currency is still above the 89 mark, closing at 89.23. That's the dollar rupee for you. RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra, in fact, has said that a 3% annual drop is natural for the rupee. He added that there is scope for policy rates to go down even further. Well, India's largest commodity exchange, the MCX, says it has found the cause of the technical glitch that halted trading for 4 hours on the 20th of October. Speaking to CNBC TV18, MCX's CEO Praveena Rai did not reveal what exactly caused the glitch. She said the exchange employed a third party to assess the root cause of the incident, and the whole system was then tested to identify any other potential issues. Take a look.
First and foremost was the root cause analysis that got done immediately. I think by within a day or two, we knew what it was and we communicated that as well. In addition to that, we've also gone to market and we've brought in a third-party assessment of the root cause, so that in case there's something getting missed internally, it gets picked up. So that is also completed. The next step is to say, hey, this is looking at the root cause, but why don't we actually put the whole system through a testing so that with real volumes, we are able to identify any other such threshold parameters. So that's something that is currently in process.
Well, that's the CEO of the MCX. Now, S&P Global Ratings has forecast that the Indian economy will grow at a rate of 6.5% in FY26 and 6.7% in the next fiscal. In its latest economic outlook, the ratings firm has said the GST rate rationalization and easing monetary policy will drive consumption-led growth. The report also states that domestic demand continues to support growth, even though US tariffs have impacted exports. Now, Hindustan Aeronautics shares dropped after a Tejas fighter jet crashed during a Dubai air show on Friday. Indian Air Force pilot Wing Commander Namant Sayal was killed in that crash. HAL has called the incident an isolated occurrence arising out of an exceptional circumstance. In a statement, HAL said the incident will not impact the company's financial performance or future deliveries. And Wing Commander Sayal was the pilot of the Tejas fighter jet that crashed in that Dubai air show accident on Friday. He was cremated with full military honours at his ancestral village in Himachal Pradesh over the weekend. His wife, Wing Commander Afsha Akhtar, also an Indian Air Force pilot, paid her final respects during the last rites. Meanwhile, the Russian Knights aerobatics team performed the missing man maneuver to honour Wing Commander Sayal. In a post on social media platform, the Russian team said that the Tejas crash was impossible to describe and they dedicated the maneuver to the memory of the brothers who did not return from the last flight. Well, the big story this evening, India has a new labour law regime in place. 29 colonial-era laws have now been repealed or rationalised into 4 new labour codes. The stated aim is to modernise the legal framework and extend social security to a wider workforce and ensure universal wage protection. However, trade unions affiliated with opposition parties have announced nationwide protests. How do the new labour codes change the landscape? Let's focus on some of the big changes. Let's start with the central government. It will fix what it calls the floor wage. So that is something that a committee has now been set up to look into. A floor wage has not yet been arrived at. Taking into account minimum living standards across geographies, states, however, will have the power to fix the minimum wage rate, which shall not be lesser than the floor wage fixed by the centre. So that becomes the floor. States can only move higher, not lower. Second, this has also been a major bone of contention for trade unions. The law gives smaller companies more flexibility when it comes to laying off workers. Companies that employ more than 100 people needed government approval before laying off. That threshold has now been increased to companies that employ over 300 people. So that's the big change there. Third, the gratuity eligibility timeline has also been eased. Fixed-term employees who've completed a year of continuous service are eligible for gratuity. Earlier, the provision mandated 5 years of service. Number 4, the new codes give gig workers legal recognition. This has been a long-standing demand, and this is for the first time that gig workers are now actually recognized in the new labour code. What we are also given to understand is that while platform companies could see limited short-term financial impact, but they are on board with the changes. In fact, the Labour Secretary speaking to us has said that all aggregators have come out in support of the new codes. And lastly, women can now work in night shifts across all establishments subject to their consent and required safety measures. There is also a requirement for mandatory women's representation in grievance redressal committees. Also, establishments having more than 50 workers will have to provide a creche facility. Labour Secretary Vandana Gunarni, speaking to us exclusively, told us a committee would be formed to fix the floor rates soon. Take a look.
Floor wage was there earlier also, however, it was not mandatory. It was an optional kind of a floor wage which Government of India used to fix at regular intervals. Now, as per the new codes, the floor wage is going to be having a statutory backing, which means it's mandatory and no state should fix their minimum wage below the floor wage. The floor wage would, as you said, look into the minimum living standards, and there would be a committee of experts that would be deciding on what should be the floor wage, and these would be periodically revised upwards. A lot of factories would have slightly less than 100 workers directly employed and rest through contractors, so that they could not come in the ambit of this condition. Now this has been increased to 300, so which means that up to 300 the companies would be now encouraged to take people on direct roles with themselves instead of taking them through contract, because it's only about 300 that they would need to take permission for any retrenchment, layoff or closure from the government. So this, in a way, this actually increases or encourages formalization, and this is an aspect that needs to be understood more clearly.
Well, that is the Labour Secretary, and you can catch more of that conversation right here on CNBC TV18. But let's take a look at the cost impact the codes could have on real estate companies, for instance. They could see their labour cost increase by 10 to 15% on account of the new changes. While the total development cost could rise by 4%, industry experts say the hike may be passed on to buyers. Meanwhile, 50 lakh IT sector employees are likely to see a reduction to their in-hand salary as the mandatory PF-linked basic pay is increased to 50%. However, the cost to companies will remain unchanged. And Shilpa joins us now with more on what these rules mean for India's gig economy, which is growing. Shilpa.
Well, these new labour codes, for the first time, they give all those who deliver our food, our online orders and drive our cabs a formal worker status. Now, a gig worker has been defined for the first time as anyone working outside a traditional employer-employee setup, and a platform worker is someone who provides a service via an online app. Now, formally coming under the Code of Social Security, gig and platform workers will get life, accidental and disability insurance, health cover and maternity benefits, old age protection or pension and a lot more. Now, they will also receive an Aadhaar-linked universal account number, which will allow them to access welfare benefits irrespective of which state they are in, removing the issue of migration as well. Now, a dedicated social security fund that will be financed by the governments, platform companies and CSR contributions will be supporting these schemes. Now, this brings in a big change for platforms with a mandatory contribution of 1 to 2% of their annual turnover to the Social Security Fund, and it's capped at 5% of payouts that are made to these workers. Now, analysts estimate that this could increase costs for the like of Swiggy and Eternal by anywhere between 2 to 3 rupees per order, with an incremental burden of about 150 to 200 crores on their GMV. Now, Eternal and Swiggy already provide benefits worth around 1% of their revenue. Now, from Swiggy to Eternal to Uber, Amazon, others, all of them have welcomed these changes. Both Swiggy and Eternal say that they don't expect any material long-term financial impact and are strengthening their internal systems for compliance. Online shopping apps like Amazon and Flipkart are also evaluating changes required, and all these companies are engaging with the government as the final rules are drafted. Now, remember, what are all these companies? It covers all the major platforms: Swiggy, Eternal, Zepto, Amazon, Flipkart, Urban Company, Ola, Uber, Rapido, every other online ordering platform that you and I use. Now, analysts expect that these companies will pass on most or all of the cost to us consumers because they're already working with very stretched, thin margins. So this could mean a slight 2 to 3% increase per online order that we make, and this will likely be added to an existing platform or handling or convenience fee going forward. But this will go towards giving a much needed social security benefits to the 40 crore plus gig workers that we depend on almost every day. Back to you.
All right, Shilpa, many thanks. Meanwhile, trade unions affiliated with opposition parties criticised the notification of the 4 labour codes. In a statement, 10 central trade unions and various independent federations have called the move a deceptive fraud committed against India's working people. The unions have called for nationwide protests on Wednesday and called on all members to wear black badges to their workplaces. Prime Minister Modi met with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on the sidelines of the G20 Leaders Summit in South Africa. Both leaders have agreed to formally launch negotiations for a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. This agreement will include goods, services, investment, agriculture and digital trade. The Prime Minister and Mark Carney expressed confidence that the agreement will help more than double bilateral trade between the two countries to $70 billion by 2030. Justice Surya Kant has taken oath as the 53rd Chief Justice of India at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The event was attended by the Prime Minister as well as other Supreme Court judges and Chief Justices. Justice Surya Kant's tenure will last till the 9th of February 2027. He will serve as the Chief Justice for a longer tenure of over 14 months. The Supreme Court has agreed to quash criminal proceedings against former Sterling biotech promoters Nitin and Chetan Sandesara. Now, this after they agreed to a 5,100 crore rupees settlement in a bank fraud case, that is. The court observed that if the petitioners are ready to deposit, criminal proceedings will not serve any useful purpose. Ashmit joins us now with more details on what transpired in court today. Ashmit, it's an unusual development that's taken place and, more importantly, the precedent that it's likely to set. Take us through what the CBI said today in court and how the Supreme Court took this matter forward.
Well, indeed, it's not every day that we have the Supreme Court saying that if you're about to pay X amount of money, we're happy to close the investigation. We don't see that every day, and therefore, again, very valid questions being raised about whether or not this sets a precedent. That's a question we'll circle back to towards the end of this. But before that, as far as the facts of this case are concerned, 2017 is when a bank fraud case was registered against former promoters of Sterling Group. Bank fraud case, that figure in question was about 5,300 crore rupees. Soon after the registration of this FIR, the CBI investigation, ED investigation, the promoters eloped to Nigeria. They have a very successful oil business running out of Nigeria. But while they've been in Nigeria, they've been pursuing developments here in the Indian courts before the Indian banks, asking for a settlement of those dues. And to their credit, they have coughed up a sum of about 3,500 crore rupees. And since then, they've essentially been pleading before the apex court that, look, if we are ready to pay back the money, why not close the investigation? That was their prayer. That was their relief that they had sought. And similar questions were then asked by the court of the CBI. The question being asked is that what purpose will this criminal investigation serve if the money is coming back? It is, after all, at the end of the day, an issue of public money. If it's coming back, no useful purpose will be served with this criminal investigation. So it is after that prod, that nudge by the apex court, that the CBI came back with that magic figure of 5,100 crore rupees. That figure was submitted in a sealed cover, and nonetheless, that figure appears to have found traction with the apex court, with the former promoters as well, and they've come back and they've agreed to that, and basis that agreement from the promoters, Supreme Court saying that provided that money is paid up, 5,100 crore rupees, the Supreme Court is happy. They want to settle and they want to quash all the ongoing investigations as far as the Sterling promoters are concerned. But as far as to coming back to whether this sets a precedent, the interesting caveat that the apex court has added is that these findings, these directions are only for the peculiar facts and circumstances of this particular case.
Well, that in itself is peculiar. One will have to wait to see how this pans out. But thanks very much for joining us, Ashmit. Well, from the Supreme Court to the Delhi High Court, which has granted interim protection to Elon Musk-backed EV major Tesla in an ongoing trademark infringement case against Gurugram-based Tesla Power. The court has barred Tesla Power from manufacturing and selling of EVs and batteries using the Tesla trademark. Tesla Power issued a statement in June that it has no intention of infringing the US company's trademark after mediation proceedings between the two companies failed. Up next, President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency has disbanded with 8 months left to go. Billionaire Elon Musk had led the initiative in the first few months after it launched with much fanfare to slash the size of the US government. And you can also catch all of CNBC TV18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Geo Hotstar. Subscribe to CNBCTV18.com and CNBC TV18 Access for our exclusive stories. In international news, tensions in West Asia continue to boil over. An Israeli airstrike on Beirut has killed Hezbollah's top military commander and 4 other people. Senior Hezbollah official Mahmoud Mati has said that Israel's strike crossed a red line, adding that the group's leadership may retaliate. Meanwhile, a Hamas delegation met Egyptian officials in Cairo to discuss the contours of the Gaza ceasefire agreement with Israel. The US and Ukraine have said that they have updated the framework to end the war with Russia after talks in Geneva. The US said revisions and clarifications were made to the plan in Geneva. Zelensky has said that conceding territory to Russia is the main problem. Details of the plan's original draft, which were leaked last week, required Kyiv to cede the eastern Donbas region and accept Russia's control over other areas. At least 3 people were killed when Pakistan's paramilitary force headquarters in Peshawar was attacked by gunmen. Officials said there was 1 suicide blast and another IED detonation, which allowed 3 to 5 militants to storm the facility. The police said the 2 gunmen were shot dead by security forces. A faction of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has claimed responsibility for the attack. President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency has disbanded with 8 months left to its mandate. Reuters reports that the Office of Personnel Management's director, Scott Kapoor, has said that the department no longer exists. The body, which was initially led by Elon Musk, promised to slash tens of billions of dollars in government spending, eventually cut barely 2. Here's a report.
U.S. President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, doesn't exist anymore. That's according to Office of Personnel Management Director Scott Cooper, who spoke to Reuters earlier this month. The cost-cutting body has seemingly been disbanded with 8 months remaining in its mandate. But these are the first public comments from the Trump administration on the end of Doge. Cooper told Reuters that it is no longer a, quote, centralized entity. According to him, in documents reviewed by Reuters, the federal government's Human Resources Office has since taken over many of Doge's functions. Cooper also told Reuters that a government-wide hiring freeze, another hallmark of Doge, is also over. Set up in January, the agency made dramatic forays across Washington in the early months of Trump's second term to rapidly shrink federal agencies, cut their budgets, or redirect their work to Trump priorities. Doge claimed to have slashed tens of billions of dollars in expenditures, but outside financial experts could not verify those claims as the unit did not provide detailed public accounting of its work. In an email to Reuters, White House spokeswoman Liz Huston said, quote, President Trump was given a clear mandate to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal government, and he continues to actively deliver on that commitment. Elon Musk, who led Doge initially, regularly touted his work on his X platform and once brandished a chainsaw to advertise his efforts to cut government jobs. Despite his public feud with Trump in May, Trump administration officials have not openly acknowledged that Doge no longer exists, and Musk has since left Washington. Although President Trump signed an executive order earlier in his term, decreeing that the body would last through July 2026, Trump and his team have nevertheless signaled his demise in public since the summer. In statements to reporters, Trump often refers to Doge in the past tense.
Well, that's the end of Doge. On to a CNBC TV18 exclusive. Royal Enfield plans to launch its first electric bike by April next year. My colleague Parikshit Luthra caught up with the company's CEO B. Govindrajan on the streets of Goa to take stock of the brand's 125-year-old legacy and India plans. Govindrajan said that 40% GST rate will deter Royal Enfield from investing in bigger motorcycles. He also said the bike maker plans to adopt a startup mentality to minimize the GST impact while it doubles down on exports.
The higher CC motorcycles, the era is slightly going off. I don't think people are really enjoying. If given a chance, even I won't enjoy that sort of a bigger motorcycles. And I want a motorcycle which has to be interacting with me. And I control the motorcycle and I enjoy the motorcycle. And that's why we said middleweight, Rashit, is what we will focus as a company. And the middleweight, our definition is 250cc to 750cc motorcycle. And currently we have 350cc, 450cc, 650cc platform. And I do believe strongly that even this market can grow because premiumization in India is the thing. And we are by far the motorcycles which is very accessible price point which we have brought in and gorgeous looking motorcycles and everybody is loving. And I do see there is a good growth even in this platform which we can bring in for future.
And you can catch that conversation with Royal Enfield CEO on Motown Centimeter at 10 p.m. right here on CNBC TV18. Another exclusive tonight. After 6 quarters of margin expansion, Tech Mahindra CEO Mohit Joshi expects business transformation to be completed in FY27. This as the heads of 14 group companies came together on television for the first time at their annual Investor Day. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV18, Joshi said that Tech Mahindra will prioritize profitability, delivery optimization and scaling of AI services.
Very confident and we're completely committed to our F27 goals, and then beyond that, we'll sketch out a vision for for the next 3 years.
Yeah, so give us a glimpse of what the vision for the next 3 years could potentially look like.
I left my crystal ball at home, unfortunately.
You don't need a crystal ball. I'm sure you've got a vision board that sets out those numbers for you. But Mohit,
I'm not going to. So look, I think the thing is right that I don't want to start manifesting my FY30 vision over here, but. I do feel that, look, the first part of the journey has been about becoming world-class, right? Really a catch-up with the peers in terms of growth, in terms of margins, in terms of deep capability, while building on the strengths of the company. FY30 is going to be about becoming world-beating, right? How do we figure out what are the things that we do exceptionally well, and how does that start to show up in our financial results?
Well, that Tech Mahindra's Mohit Joshi. 6 people dead after 2 private buses collided in Tamil Nadu's Tenkasi district. 28 passengers were also injured in the crash. Police have said that the accident was caused by reckless driving. Health officials said the condition of some victims remains serious, adding that the death count is likely to increase. The Indian Met Department has issued a warning in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Tamil Nadu. This after a low-pressure area over the South Andaman Sea is expected to move west-northwestwards. This is expected to intensify into a depression within the next 24 hours. The Met Department has also said that these weather conditions are expected to trigger rain in some coastal districts of Orissa between 25th to 27th of November. The Indian Navy has commissioned the INSMahe, built by Cochin Shipyard. The ship is designed to hunt submarines, conduct coastal patrols and secure vital maritime routes. Legendary film actor Dharmendra died at 89 after a prolonged illness. With a career spanning 6 decades and a crowd favourite for his debonair appearance, Dharmendra straddled action, comedy and romantic roles with equal ease. He was honoured with the Padma Bhushan in 2012 and also served as a BJP MP for 1 term. The United Nations Wildlife Trade Body has reversed its earlier recommendation to restrict India from importing endangered animals for Anant Ambani's Vantara. According to Reuters, the recommendation was reversed after countries including the US, Japan, Brazil and India called the measure premature. In an overnight hearing, the Standing Committee had said that there does not seem to be enough support for retaining the earlier recommendation. And speaking of Vantara, American businessman Donald Trump Jr. touring Anant Ambani's centre during his visit to Gujarat's Jamnagar, he expressed appreciation for Vantara's scale, vision and commitment to wildlife rescue and conservation.
The conservation benefit of taking all these animals, rescuing them and giving them this life, this is better than I live. It's just so spectacular to see the animals here in the habitat that you create that mimics their natural habitat. You see a life in their eyes that you just don't see anywhere else. It's just an incredible place. So I highly recommend anyone who has a chance to come here to Vantara, you must do it. It's truly a wonder of the world. And what you've done with your vision is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Well, that's Donald Trump Jr. in Vantara. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV18. Stay tuned. We're back in a minute.